Hello, everyone. You are tuning in to the second episode of Alumni Talkies, an SCMHRD podcast featuring our illustrious alumni. I am Vaishnavi, and with me I have Vishnu, and we will be your hosts for this riveting episode of the Alumni Talkies. Today, we cannot be more excited as we present to you our special guest, Mr. Rohan Kumar from the batch of 2014. Mr. Rohan, an army kid, pursued his bachelor's in computer science before joining SCMHRD. Fiercely committed to social responsibility, he was a member of the CSR cell of SCMHRD. Only a glimpse of his contribution during that period would be the whooping amount of 750 plus he raised for the fight against human trafficking. He worked with Cummins before joining Phillips in 2019. At present, he is the HR project leader of Phillips. Having worked in numerous domains like people strategy, talent management, organization development, he has gathered deep insights into his field. Today, we are engaging with him on a topic he has a clear bias and love for: change management. A very warm welcome, Rohan sir, and thank you for being a part of Alumni Talkies.
Thanks a lot, Vishnu, and thanks a lot, Vaishnavi, for inviting me.
In the ever evolving business environment, what are some of the top HR priorities that HR leaders are focusing on?
Thanks for the question, Vaishnavi. So, if you see, the business environment is not the same what it was 10 to 15 years ago, with new technology coming in, the ever-changing customer requirement, whether it is changing the generational requirement and changing the workforce dynamics of the business as well. The
Right.
business is evolving at a very rapid pace. And if you see, a lot of businesses are reinventing themselves more and more frequently and fast at a faster pace as compared to earlier. So earlier, the average time of a business in the life cycle for reinventing themselves would be somewhere around 20 to 30 years, if not more. But in today's environment, it has become somewhere around 10 to 15 years or even lesser in some cases. One of the recent examples we saw is Facebook pivoting towards metaverse and calling itself Meta and being bullish around the technology, right?
Hmm.
If I have to talk about Philips as well, uh, we know Philips as a leader in the lighting industry, but now Philips is a leader in the health tech market or in the health tech domain.
Right.
Uh, and Philips has evolved like this in the last decade or so. So the point is the business is changing really fast uh, and more frequently as compared to earlier. And then you have technology like AI, ML, etc. coming into the picture. So the top three things as per me which HR function needs to focus on is one, definitely the strong fundamentals. That means the various COEs, the center of excellences, or the areas in which HR contributes toward the business, whether it is talent acquisition, rewards, HR business partnering, or anything else. So that needs to be really strong and really sorted for the organization. That's the first thing, and that's the fundamental thing for any function as well. Second is the context that I gave on ever-changing business environment. I think managing change and transformations is also an area in which HR plays a huge role. Really partnering with the business and enabling these transformations to happen smoothly in the business. And the third one, as for me, is being a true business partner. So being the mirror to the organization, uh, helping the business maneuver through all the changes that's happening, whether it is change or whether it is just the challenges that the business is facing, and really helping them maneuver through it to ensure that whatever the strategy of the organization is, they deliver on it. So these are the three things I would say uh, are the top priorities of the HR leaders right now. And I think we'll deep dive on the managing change and transformation part today.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. And so, sir, coming to second question, what exactly does change management entail, and what are some key factors involved in planning the make any transformation successful?
Thanks, Vishnu. So, see, as the cliche goes, change is the only constant in life, right? And that is true for businesses as well.
Yeah.
Now, the magnitude of change can be high or low depending upon the need of the business and the overall strategy. However, there are certain fundamentals that would remain the same when it comes to change management and what it entails.
Yeah.
Uh, First, maybe let me give you some examples of what has changed, right? What kind of changes exist or what kind of transformations can happen. So it can be a transformation when a business is implementing a new technology. Informatics is taking a big role in every business where every business wants to be a solution provider, not just selling a box or a product or a service, but really selling the solution to the customers and having this long strategic partnership. That can be one transformation that the business is going through. Mergers and acquisitions is another. Then change in the organization structure can be another change. Change in times of crisis where you're fighting fire and you have to make some fast changes to ensure that you are up to speed with it. So these are kind of changes that happen in businesses in different contexts. Every change and the fundamental of a change management, you can kind of boil down into three pieces. One is engage. Second piece of a change management is transition. And third piece of a change management is sustain. To put it simply, engage is basically the pre-work that you would do before you execute any transformation in the organization. So you start with creating a case for change. Why do you want this change? What is the strategic benefit to the organization by undergoing this transformation? Then get the sponsors and get a team in place. Ensure that the context that you are enabling this change is ready to accept this change, and start shaping your story that you have created around change. So that's the engage part which you do before you execute the change, and then you also understand what are the stakeholders and what kind of impact it will have on various stakeholders. The second part of change is transition, where you tailor your communication plan towards the organization in which the change is happening. You enable the people and empower the people to help them go through this transformation or transition, and you remove all the barriers that you see can hinder your success in this change. I'll give some examples as well after this. And the last step is sustain, as the name suggests. Ensure that you celebrate quick wins. Ensure that whatever transformation you have done sustains and goes forward without any uh, errors or issues or challenges. And what you had expected the transformation to reap benefits as you get those benefits from that. So that's the third part, which is sustain part. And to give an example, engage is, as I mentioned, you create your story. Transition, you also understand while you're going through the transition. You put in some checks and means to understand the voice of the organization and start making the changes based on the feedback that you receive from the organization. And sustain is you put in measures to ensure that it becomes you don't have to again go into it and again redo the change. It kind of goes through and flows through by its own. That these are the fundamentals of change. You can apply this change management. You can apply this anywhere, whether it is a big change or a small change, depending on the context you're in.
Yeah, I think that was a very elaborate answer and exactly what we were looking for. So, change managers are bearing the brunt of key decisions. So, what are the key traits that they should possess?
I'll give a little generic answer to this, but it holds true for anybody who's leading change in the organization. Uh, First one is stakeholder management, because any change that happens at a level where you have multiple players. So you need to ensure that whether it are senior leaders in the organization you're working with, or your peers, or whoever it is. So you have to have a strong muscle in stakeholder management. Second is project management, because change, like any project, has to be clearly chalked out. What's the Gantt chart? What's the timeline that you are looking at, and what kind of plans you'll execute in what time frame. So project management is the second skill. Third is, I would say, patience, uh, because for simple reason, any transformation that happens in the organization, to see its fruits, it takes time. Any strategic decision that you take, you can't expect that you do it in 6 months and then you start seeing the benefits in 6 months. So it will take time. So have that patience and wait for the efforts that have been put in to reap the benefits in due course of time. And the last one, which is I feel one of the most important one, is really courage, because just raising your hand and saying, "Hey, this is not the direction that we intended to go in," and because transformations involve a lot of senior leaders, as a change management expert or a change partner, you really need to be in the position when you're sitting in the boardroom, raising your hand and saying, "Hey, I feel that if we do this, this might be the result, and this is not what we're expecting." So having that courage to speak up is extremely important skill. corporate.
Thank you so much, sir, for this very elaborate answer. And also, sir, just as you mentioned, change is the only thing that is a permanent. So even though it is, even the all of us know that change is a permanent, but most of us not really looking forward for that change. So how do you tackle this resistance to change in an organization?
Yeah, thanks, Vishnu. That's a good question. So there will always be resistance. Take it for granted whenever there's a transformation. There will always be resistance in various shapes or forms depending on the change and the maturity of the organization. It can be around the readiness of the organization to go through this transformation, or maybe just the understanding of what needs to be done, or maybe a lot of senior leaders might not be on the same page at various points in time. So there can be a lot of resistance in the organization. Now, I think what helps in tackling this resistance is if you, the plan that I mentioned earlier, engage, transition, and sustain at every stage, have uh, ensure that you're taking the feedback and aligning the right stakeholders at the right time. That will reduce, I wouldn't say that will eradicate resistance altogether. You might still face resistance at a later stage, but that will definitely reduce the resistance that you would face during the transition or transformation. So having checkpoints at all the three stages to ensure that you're taking the feedback from the right people and then giving the answers back to them based on the feedback that you have received. And if in case the resistance reaches a level where it becomes a hindrance, then uh, don't hesitate in asking for help and ensuring that you involve the right people at the right time, because always a collaborative effort. It's not something which is done by an individual. It's always a team effort that will take us through this.
Yeah. So, just implementing a change management strategy won't do, maybe. So, how to drive change and make sure the workforce also adapts to it while retaining the essence of a company's work culture?
Yeah, thanks, Vaishnavi. I think that's an important part, really, to ensure that after all, the overall organization embraces and moves towards the right direction or in the direction that the intention is to. Uh, so I can give an example of what I did just to maybe help as an example and help understand better. So I was doing a change in the organization in my in Phillips itself in the previous role, where the idea was that we'll integrate three different software organizations into one, and there was a clear customer need for that, because the idea was to have a common user experience for all the three products that we had in which were delivered by those software teams for our customers. And we were integrating these three teams together. This would impact around, when I say impact, not as a headcount reduction, but this would impact the way of working of almost 450 to 500 people. And how we did that was just following obviously the steps, but we also ensured that we create a network of change champions. These were leaders who were looked at as influencers in the organization of this 450 people, who were our ears and eyes on the floor to keep on feeding us the feedback that they're receiving from the workforce from a cultural behavioral point of view. And because there were three different teams coming together, all of them had a very different way of working. Obviously, the Phillips culture was there, but then the way of working, you can imagine, was different because the leaders were different, the style was different. So
Right.
we effectively used this network of change champions. Also using technology as well, we partnered with an external agency to have a survey created for us, and then we used their algorithm to create meaningful meaning out of the qualitative responses that we received from the employees to create actions. So these two things really helped in ensuring that the culture of the organization is if it was required to be created, it was created as per the expectation.
Thank you so much, sir, for the very insightful answer. And, sir, why do change management initiatives fail as seen in some workplaces?
Yeah. Uh, so there are two ways to look at it, right? Either the overall transformation fails from a strategic perspective. That means you said, okay, we want to implement this technology, and then 2 years, 3 years down the line, you realize that, okay, this was not the right decision. So that means from a strategic perspective, it would have failed. Or the second way to look at it is during the transformation, you realize that while making the transformation, there are a lot of disturbances, noises. It can be you realize that you have high attrition because people are not accepting this transformation, or you realize that you don't have the right skill set, and then there's nobody to do the job. The productivity goes down, the team engagement goes down. So that's the second way to look at it when you see during the transformation it's failing. And in the first one, you fail because the strategy is not clear. It's as simple as that, right? You took a wrong decision to implement that XYZ transformation or technology in your business. And it confused a lot of people, and then without execution, the execution could not happen ultimately. And in the second one, which is during the transformation, one of the biggest reasons why it happens is the right stakeholders are not involved, aligned. You would go through the transformation, and in between, you realize that there was XYZ team who were to be engaged in this conversation, but they were not. So ensuring that at the beginning itself, you make a clear case and then ensure that you identify the stakeholders that you need to align for this transformation. So that would reduce the chances of failing from the second perspective.
Right. I think continuous review is also very important.
Indeed.
And how has your experience been while working in this field? Like any particular experience that has been compelling enough to stay with you?
Yeah, so I think maybe I'll repeat a bit, but the change I just called out, where we'll be merging three organizations into one, that was quite an interesting one. It was challenging for multiple reasons because this was the first project that I picked up when I joined Phillips back in 2019,
Okay.
and uh, I was just brand new into the organization. So for me as well, knowing the people, knowing the culture of the organization would have taken some time, but since still this change had already come into picture, I was expected to manage this change. And there were a lot of challenges in the beginning, ensuring that, as I mentioned, aligning the right people, right stakeholders at the right time. We also, since the change was of 450 people, which is a big size, and it was a global change because we were realigning our businesses as well. So a lot of global stakeholders are involved, and it was a big value project for the organization. And we did a good job. I'm happy to say that we did a good job. The leaders participated very strongly, and as I said, we formed a core team who would work on it. I was a part of it, and 1 year down the line, we were recognized as well for this transformation that we brought to serve the customers well. So that's something which will stick with me. Uh, yeah.
What is one prominent learning that you gathered from this experience? Something at the top of your mind.
I think if I have to call something, I would say just really going into the details of the business. So
Right.
how once you become comfortable with why the change is happening, and then you understand the nuances around it, that hey, okay, this is a clear customer requirement, then it becomes easy for you to also talk to the employees in that language. And just bringing everybody and creating that clear story is extremely important. Even if, let's say, if there are five leaders talking, if three are talking in one language and the other two leaders are sharing a different story, it can derail your whole plan, because then they don't see the leadership on the same page. So I think as an HR, understanding the business nuances and then aligning the leaders to talk in the same language to the overall organization is extremely important.
Right.
That's an inspiring answer that you gave to us, sir. And any words of advice to give to our students, or anything you would like to add from your side?
I think maybe I'll go to the first question where I said uh, the business environment is evolving. So the first thing that I can call out is just focus on building skills for the future. Tech is here to stay. We all know that there are no two ways about it. So, and tech in HR is also gaining a lot of pace. A lot of organizations are using technology in making decisions, which were more qualitative and subjective earlier. So just get a little more comfortable with that, see what's happening in the space, and get your hands wherever possible in some projects or something like that. Then stakeholder management is also something which I would heavily suggest when you guys get out of SCMHRD and start your career. Just try to experiment with stakeholder management, how you deal with difficult stakeholders, not so difficult stakeholders in the early part of the career. That will help setting the right foundation for you. Yeah, get deep into the business. I think HR has a strong say in, has a seat in the table on the table. So get comfortable with what the business is doing, where it has challenges, what are the product line, what makes money for the business, what doesn't make money for the business. I think that that perspective gets becomes really important if you want to go in business partnering role, HR business partnering role, even if not business partnering, even if it is talent acquisition. I think just having that strong business acumen is extremely important. And yeah, last one is be courageous to give and take feedback. Feedback is just the best thing ever. So just be courageous to give feedback and also be humble and aware to receive feedback for yourself, from your colleagues, peers, your team, or the team that, or your obviously managers and all the anyways.
That's a very insightful answer, sir. And thank you so much, sir. We appreciate you for giving us your valuable time for such an enlightening session. We are confident that we students will be much inspired by your variety of experiences and will be able to apply whatever we learn through this session in our MBA studies. And thank you so much, sir.
No problem. Thanks, Vishnu. Thanks, Vishnu.